For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nolan Brills, and I'm the accounting fiscal manager with the Teachers Retirement System. So today I'll just kind of go over, we're going to talk about just a quick overview of TRS and our, your responsibilities as a TRS employer. Some of the membership eligibility issues like requirements for retiring members, eligibility for new hires, things like that. And then all the monthly reporting, which is basically like an overview of the TRS system. And then we'll obviously open it up for any questions, towards the end. TRS was established in 1937 by Montana law. It's a defined benefit pension plan, which is, you'll also hear the term defined contribution plans, and those are more like the 401k and things like that with other employers. The defined benefit pension plan, a retiree actually receives a monthly benefit for life once they retire, and there's several different options at retirement, but they definitely can receive a monthly benefit for the rest of their life that would never run out on them. So the benefit amount depends on the member's average final compensation or salary and their years of service. TRS actually has well over $4 billion in assets managed by the Board of Investments. It's actually real close to $5 billion right now, depending on the day and what the markets are doing. Fiscal year 2020, these numbers, we had about over 19,000 active contributing members. Those are full and part-time members. We have several inactive members as well that are not contributing but still have an account balance. And we paid over $384 million to 17,000 retirees and other benefit recipients in 2020. And most of that stays in the state of Montana. TRS employers, obviously the majority of our employers are public school districts. However, the state of Montana, including like the Board of Public Education and the School for the Deaf and Blind, those are all TRS employers as well. And really any agency or political subdivision that employs any person who meets the TRS membership criteria can be a TRS employer, including community colleges and the university system. Some of the TRS employer responsibilities, what we'll go over here. Obviously, the main one is to pick up the contributions of each employed TRS member and submit those to TRS each month. Now, it is a requirement to report to TRS each month, which is relatively new. Even if you don't have wages or contributions to report, there is a way, and we'll discuss that a little bit later, to do a $0 wage report. And that just helps TRS understand who, in the past, if we just had people not report to us, then we weren't sure exactly who should have been reporting to us and who is, delinquent with their reports. With everyone reporting, even when they have nothing to report, it allows us to see, who's missing their reports and things like that. So very important to report each month by the 15th of the month for the 15th of the following month for that month. So it's also the responsibilities of the employer to inform, a person required to be a member of their rights and responsibilities related to TRS. And we do have handouts to help that, and we'll go over some of that. And to notify TRS of employment of a person eligible for membership. And that's basically by just reporting the wages and contributions and remitting those to TRS. So basically, we're going to talk quite a bit about working retirees, but when we're employing a retired member in a position reportable to TRS, so if you hire someone in a TRS reportable position, then you just need to be sure you and the retiree understand all the requirements and consequences. And there are fact sheets online that I can show you where those are at here in the next few slides. But it's very important to understand those things because it may have consequences for that retired member if they go over their allowable earnings, or if they don't follow the requirements, they may have to repay all of the benefits that they've been receiving plus interest. And we don't like to see that situation come up, and I don't think any employers would either. So we do have other information on TRS, the TRS website at trs.mt.gov that can help you with all of your employer responsibilities. In a lot of that information, it will be in the communication archive, because we do send out memos regularly to our employers. And if you even if you happen to delete your email or whatever, if you didn't think you received it, you can always check that communication archive, and it will have all of the information that has been sent out to the employers on the website. So this is where you can see this communication archive will be, on our home page, and it's in our popular links. This is where you log in to your wage and contribution system or your insurance deductions. There's several fact sheets. That's one of those, having to do with termination pay and substitute teaching, and then working after retirement, those types of things. But it wouldn't be a bad idea to get familiar with all of our fact sheets, and then of course any of our communication archives. Membership and contributions. So who is required to be a TRS member? Basically anyone who provides educational or instructional services. And it's kind of determined by the duties, not the position title. So if you're in doubt on anything, you can certainly contact TRS. We can review position descriptions and make a determination on certain positions. Most of them are going to be really straightforward. Teachers, obviously, any coaches or athletic directors, school psychologists, nurses, those types of things are all TRS reportable positions. Any teacher's aides and paraprofessionals or substitute teachers, people working even hourly, just small amounts. We will discuss that later, but those are TRS reportable positions. It's just that they may not have to be reported for the first 210 hours. And again, we'll go over that later. Some of the folks who are excluded from TRS membership, the school, obviously your positions at the school, or anything really in the office staff, for the most part, if they're non-instructional, then that's excluded. Hall monitors, custodial staff, ticket takers, playground monitors, those things. Those positions are usually excluded. But again, if you ever have questions on any of that information, whether that position that you have should be reportable, then you should certainly contact TRS. Or if you have people working in two separate positions, one which may be reportable, one which may not, those you can certainly contact TRS and you may have to split those positions and report part of it to TRS and part of it to public employees retirement. So this is, we were just discussing, a person who's not already a TRS member. So if they're a brand new hire and they've never been reported to TRS, they must become a TRS member if they're working in a TRS reportable position after 210 hours in a fiscal year. And this is, a threshold, not necessarily a waiting period, meaning they can opt in. You can start reporting a person, like a substitute teacher. If they say, yeah, I want to be a member of TRS, you can start reporting them from day one. But if they decide they do not want to have their contributions withheld and sent to TRS, they have to after 210 hours. So that needs to be communicated to those new employees, and we do have a pretty streamlined process for that. So, and then once that person that's just a part-time sub or whatever they may be doing for the school, once they've been reported to TRS, they have to keep contributing to TRS like the next year and going forward, unless they, quit and withdraw their funds from TRS, and then the process starts over. But if they have an account balance with TRS, then they will need to be, continue to be reported to TRS going forward. So, and I guess I just encourage you, if a new employee is expected to meet the 210 hours, then just start reporting them from day one. And if a new employee is not expected, then you don't have to report them, but you're going to definitely want to make sure that they fill out that Form 106, and that's kind of what this slide talks about. So, so they may elect to enroll and pay contributions from day one, but if they opt out of TRS, this covers you as the employer, this Form 106. If you keep that on file in there, you're going to keep it in your employment files for that member. But that way they can't come back, 5 years or 6 or 10 years down the road and say, hey, I don't know why my, the first part of, when I was working for the school, or these first few years I was working, were not reported to TRS, and they should have been. If you don't have that Form 106 on file, you could be in a situation where the school ends up, paying for like a buyback for that service that was not reported, if they say that it should have been reported and you don't have anything to back up that, that they opted out. And that's what that Form 106 does. So make sure you're having your part-time people who opt out fill out that Form 106 and keep that on file. And again, if you think they're going to go over the 210 hours, you can encourage them to enroll from day one. They're not losing any money. They will have their contributions deducted from their paychecks, but it does come to TRS and it earns interest, and it will be here for them when they, decide to quit the teaching profession, or they may even become vested in the future. So we have, we're on to the new hire procedure. This was distributed to TRS employers in a memo in the spring of 2020. And it's much more convenient for employers as well as for TRS, and hopefully for the new hires as well, because they don't have to go get their beneficiary designation form notarized or any of that stuff. So basically, all this information is on the employer forms page on the website. There's the new hire procedure for employers, which is something that I would highly suggest all of you keep handy at your somewhere near your desk. And then an employer, the membership election, which is the Form 106 that we just talked about, for any substitutes or part-time paraprofessionals or teachers' aides. That's a form that obviously the employer will keep on file for that member if they choose to opt out of TRS for the first 210 hours. And then we have the new member handout, which is if you have any new hires and new people that are going to be new to TRS, that's just a handout that you can, it's highly encouraged you give to each new hire, new TRS member. So the steps really are pretty simple, and these steps are going to be in this new hire procedure if you print this out. But first, you just need to determine which new hires will be working in a TRS reportable position. So like I said at the beginning, most of the time it's really straightforward whether they're in a TRS reportable position, but if it's not, then contact TRS. Then you're going to check their member status in the wage and contribution reporting system. And you do that by going to the member search edit and you look up the employee by the social security number. And if they're found, you can confirm the status. And if they're not found, or if they're in a terminated cashed out status, then they're considered new TRS members. I mean, they're not. Then you can continue to step 3. And if it's a new person that's a substitute or a part-time person, then you can have them fill out Form 106. But if it's a new person who's a full-time teacher that you hired new, obviously it's pretty obvious they're going to just be reported from day one. So really these, I mean, the majority of these just have to do with these part-time substitutes or teachers, because, if you hire someone that's a full-time teacher, it's very obvious you're going to just start reporting them to TRS from day one. So, but you'll still provide that new member handout even to the full-time new people, because it'll go over that. Because once you report the wages for the first time for that new TRS member, TRS will automatically mail out a welcome letter to those members. And then the letters will encourage them to create their MyTRS user account, which you can do a lot of things on, including you can designate your beneficiaries online as a new member. But there's also a lot of things where they can check their balances and, check their creditable service and things like that. So there's a lot of things that they can do on that MyTRS that they should have a MyTRS account for their entire career. And then, of course, like we talked about, if you hire a retired TRS member, someone who's receiving benefits from TRS, then they must complete the Form 146. And I believe there's, obviously a portion of that the school business professionals will obviously complete also, and that needs to get submitted to TRS within 30 days of hiring that person. And you will get a warning on the wage and contribution system every time saying, please submit Form 146. So, and if you have questions about that, or you think you've submitted the form and it's still giving you the error or the warning, you can contact Chris Fish in our office, or you could contact me and I can get you in touch with Chris, but she's the one who handles a lot of that information. So this is a really rare situation, but if you ever have where you pull up a member and it says that they're a TIA CREF member, that's someone who's been reported to the university system and is not a TRS member, and they cannot really be concurrently reported. So you probably need to contact TRS about that member, and we need to get to the bottom of, are they still working for the university system, and or have they just quit with the university system and taken a position with the public school systems in Montana. So that's just a really rare situation, but if you ever run into that, it's probably best to just contact TRS. So what is earned compensation? This is just more or less gross pay. So it's the amount that's that you pay a member out of funds controlled by the employer for any pre-tax deductions allowed under. So its earned compensation does not include like direct premium payments for health or dental. If you have a situation where you pay cash in lieu of a benefit, if the employee has the right to choose whether they take the cash or the benefits, then that cash payment is not reportable to TRS. There are situations where it is if they do not have the right to choose and they only get the cash. So you're going to want to contact TRS in those rare situations. Probably most of you already know the majority of this, and if they have payments or reimbursements for professional membership dues or any lodging or travel stuff, that is not reportable also. And then, of course, I get the question every year, just so everyone in the room knows. I get it several times every year. When you pay out your sick and annual leave payments at the end of the year for people who are leaving your district, those are not reportable to TRS. Or if someone's retiring, the sick and annual leave payment is not reportable as wages to TRS. It will go into the term pay calculator if they choose option 1 or 2, but that it's never reportable just straight up as wages, or and you will not just withhold contributions on those sick and annual leave payouts ever. Employer contribution rates for fiscal year 2020. So here coming up in July, they go up by 0.1%, and they've been doing that for the last 7 or 8 years, and it'll continue through fiscal year 2024, at which point they'll be done unless obviously there's any changes by the legislature between now and then. But the membership rate is the employer rate is 9.27 for this coming year. For working retirees, it's 11.65. For member contributions, obviously these can change. It will be 8.15%. But if you have tier 1 and tier 2 members, which most people do at this point, those could change in the future. They could have different employee contribution rates depending on what tier they are in the system. But we don't expect to see that in the near future, but it could change sometime down the road. So just always keep that in mind, that tier 1 members are if they were hired before July 1st of 2013, and the tier 2 members if they were became members of TRS on or after July 1st of 2013. So now we're going to talk about the actual wage and contribution system, or the online portals. So never, bold letters here, never log in with a user ID and password that belongs to someone else. We know this happens. It's easy to set up your own and keep that to yourself. If anything ever were to happen, where things got goofy in the system, or things were done by a certain user, that belongs to that user and that user ID. So just keep those things to yourself. And if you have any issues with people who have left and you want to make sure they don't have access, you can contact TRS and we can talk to you about how to do that. TRS does not create user IDs and passwords. You create your own accounts. So we have access to the user IDs. We do not have access to the passwords. So we can certainly set you up a new password and then you can change it, but we definitely do not keep the passwords on file. So the way to create a new, so the Form 141 is what designates each employer their the online administrator, and each school should only have one online administrator. And that form will need to be signed by an employer representative. Now, in some small school districts, these are the same person. You may have the right to sign the Form 141 as the office manager. But in a lot of places, it'll be like your superintendent that's the employer representative that signs that, or your school board chairman or chairperson. So really, those are pretty straightforward. If you have any questions about the 141, just let us know. But if you're a new person, you do need to fill out Form 141. Become the online administrator for your school, and then you can add additional users as you see fit as the online administrator. You shouldn't allow people to use your username and password. You should just have them create their own username and password, and then you can grant them access as an additional user. And this kind of just is the same stuff, that we just talked about. So really the steps are that you go on to the TRS wage and contribution system or the insurance deduction system and create your username and password, and then you fill out the form and you put your username on the form that you've already created in the system. And then once we receive that information and verify it, we will basically grant access to that username and to that school for that school or for that employer. So I don't know how many of you use both of these systems, but if you use both of these systems, the insurance deduction reporting system or obviously everyone uses the wage and contribution reporting system, you must log in to these systems at least every 90 days. Otherwise, your access will be terminated and you will have to contact TRS. The insurance deduction reporting system, so basically a retiree who remains covered on your group health insurance may choose to have their premiums deducted from their monthly TRS benefits. So we will just deduct those before we pay out those benefits to those retired TRS members. And then, we'll send those premiums to the schools, to pay their next month's premiums. And if you have questions about the online insurance deduction reporting system, we have some folks in our office that deal with that in particular. And it's the same way the online administrator can add additional users in the insurance deduction system. So again, Sherry Smith and Chris Fish in our office are the main contacts for the insurance deduction reporting system. You can see that at the bottom here. Remind your retired members that they should contact you, not TRS, with questions related to the insurance premiums, because those are not something that we have direct contact with the insurance carriers. So but TRS will send those funds to the employers, each month, and they're intended for paying the next month's insurance premium, so not the current month. The wage and contribution system, the online administrator or authorized additional user logs in each month to report the wages. And you got to submit, like we talked about, submit a contribution report for all 12 months, even in the summer months if there are no wages. And we'll talk about those, the $0 reports if you have those. Each contribution report and payment is due by the 15th of the following month. So if we're talking about April wages and contributions that were earned in April, those are due by the 15th of May. And obviously we probably sent out a memo just today, I believe, that you probably will all receive, but it's just another reminder that the June reports are due by the 15th of July, and that's very important because of the close of the fiscal year. It's a kind of a hard deadline, especially in July, that those are all in by July 15th. TRS cannot post contributions to member accounts or update their creditable service until your report is submitted and that payment is posted. So it's not just about submitting your report. If we don't have the payment, none of that's posted until we have payment, of course. So that's one of the reasons we strongly encourage payment by electronic funds or ACH rather than by check. So if you're not using electronic funds yet, we strongly encourage you to fill out the Form 140 on our website and get that turned in, and we can get you set up for electronic funds. As far as creating an actual TRS wage and contribution report, there are 3 ways to create a monthly report. The easiest and most used method is to do an upload report, which is, you just select that upload report, and then hopefully your systems, whether you use Black Mountain or Foxy Lady or Tyler Tech, I don't know, there's several of them that are used. Whatever you use should be able to create an upload report that can be uploaded into our system for the monthly wage and contribution report. And you can probably discuss that amongst yourselves if you have questions about those upload reports in your various software that you use. So the copy forward is also, if you only have 1 or 2 teachers that, are paid pretty much the same every month, you can obviously just go into that old report and copy it forward, and it'll copy forward into that new month, and you can make any changes you need to, and then edit and post that, or edit and submit that report. So if you need to do any adjustment reports with just a few people, you can add a report from scratch. You could do this for a large report too, or your regular contribution report, but it is much more time consuming. You add each person individually, and it takes a little longer. But if you only have 1 or 2 people that were misreported and you need to do an adjustment, that is a very handy functionality. And this is also the feature that you'll use the add function if you're doing a 0 contribution report. And that'll, I think we'll show that screen a little bit later, but so the overall process is that you upload a report, create a new report, copy a new report forward. However you do that new report and create it, you'll review that report, make sure everything looks as it should. Then you can run the employer edit report, review any of those errors that may be on the report or warnings, fix anything that you may need to fix, and you'll actually have to rerun your employer report again if any changes were made. So if you run your report and you have 2 or 3 errors and you make any changes, it will not automatically fix those errors, and those won't go away until you actually rerun your report again. And then once you have no errors and everything looks in balance, then you can submit your report. Now, if you do a $0 contribution report that we were talking about, where you're just reporting to let us know that you don't have any contributions or anyone to report for that month, then it'll just automatically, submit that report if there's nothing to edit or check, obviously. So this screen you should all be familiar with if you've been in the system. This is our list of employer reports screen. Some of the functionality of this screen is you can actually, it'll default to the fiscal year, and then you can obviously change the fiscal year by doing the drop-down box and go back to previous fiscal years. you can do this calendar year, and it'll sort by calendar year. And you can obviously change the year again using that functionality. It'll show you all of your reports for this year. So, I mean, you can look at any of these. You can go into the report summary for any of these. You won't be able to make any changes, obviously, to any of them if they've already been posted, which is this check mark. It'll tell you when you submitted those reports and what pay period those were for. Anything like that, if they had an overage, shortage, and the amount remitted, employer contributions, the working retiree contributions, all that stuff is right here on this first screen. The down arrow takes you to the report summary, and the little people icon takes you to the employee edit screen, or the employee screen, where it has each individual employee. If you're adding a new report or you need to do anything like that, that's what the plus button is for. Once you go into the report summary or the down arrow, it will have this screen that's a little more detailed on that particular report. It'll show you, all your normal employee contributions, your earnings that you're reporting for regular members, and then as well as working retirees is separate. It'll show you, all of your various, if you do have buybacks or termination pay that you're reporting, any of this information may be useful to you for balancing. And obviously, this is where you run your report or submit your report once it's run. So once you have run your report and you go into that people icon, or the to get to the edit or the member edit screen, you can see all of your caution signs by clicking on the warnings radio button, or you can click on the errors radio button and see all of your errors. Now, errors will make it so you cannot submit your report until they're fixed. And warnings are, a lot of times, they're either informational or they're things that you should attempt to fix if you can, so that you have like as clean information that you're reporting to TRS as possible. And you can review all those by clicking on the edit button to check that information. Once you click on that edit button for a particular employee, it'll show you that you're reporting, full-time, 1.0 FTE, and the wages, and the normal contributions that are associated with that was wages. This calculator button will just calculate those contributions based on the wages that you have reported. In this case, it looks like the employer was reporting a buyback. However, they got an error because the tax deferred buyback contribution requires a service purchase irrevocable election form. And so they need to, that you would contact anyone that says contact TRS, just contact TRS if you get those type of errors. So once you have fixed all of your errors and rerun your report, you should, come up with this screen that has the green bars across the top, and it's in a ready to submit status. You'll want to check and make sure that everything is in balance. On this particular report that is the example, they have the $94,099.89 is due on this report, and that's what they have set up to pay on their amount remitted. However, they have a credit of $47.12, so they basically overpaid by $47.12 on the previous report, or on a previous report. And so really the total balance due is less that amount, so they could actually pay the $94,052.77 and that would clear their balance that they have, their credit balance. So in order to do that, you click on that edit header, and it'll show you what your balance for it is, the amount due this report. So really it'll give you that, the employer, that total balance due. And if you put that in, the amount remitted, then it'll wipe out that credit, because then they'll underpay or pay short by the $47.12, and it'll wipe out that credit for the next, once it's posted. So moving on, if you do need to do a $0 report, this is sort of, what it looks like. You'll click on that plus button, it'll ask you, it'll give you the pay period and everything that you're, it'll default to the next pay period, and it'll say $0 contribution report, yes. Once you hit save, and you'll just go in and submit that report, and it'll post automatically, because there's nothing really to edit if it's truly a $0 report with nobody on it. And then more details on that can be found on the online manual, and that's in the upper right hand corner, always, that online manual. So if you click into the online manual, you can see, there's sort of like a table of contents on the left hand side that you can go in to expand any of these and see, and it's useful information on how to do a lot of that. So you can print the report summary in a printer friendly version, always, from any of these screens. You could even do the employee detail screens too, using this printer button, and that'll do like a screen print for that screen that you're on. And it's more, it leaves off some of that stuff on the side, so it's a lot more printer friendly version. So that was the majority of what I have about the employer reports. If you are using the member search edit screen, you'll just click on that screen. This is what you'll do when you hire a new member, and you want to make sure that they, or I should say, if you hire a new employee that's in a TRS reportable position, you'll want to make sure if they've ever been reported to TRS or what their status is with TRS. And you can do that by clicking on this member search edit, and you can look them up by their SSN. If you want to check the entire system, you do need to delete the employer. If you're looking them up by name, I should say, you will need to delete the employer record, because if they're reported by a different school in the past, then you'll want to make sure that's blank to look them up by name. But if you do it by social security number, they should come up regardless, and that's by just using the find function. So if you search by SSN or name and your employee does not have a TRS membership record, you can either add them to TRS manually by using this add button, or you can just wait and put them on your, once you have them on your upload file for the first time, it will create a new member record for that person. And you may get that error that says, like when you run your report, you may get an error that says, you need to fill in their gender and date of birth, because those are not on the upload file. So you'll just have to go in and put in the gender and date of birth for all your new folks that you get that error for. So this is just like an example. If you pull somebody up and it says terminated non-vested, so this person does have an account balance, because it's just saying that they still do, they are a TRS member, they just haven't been reported or they've been inactive, so they're in a terminated non-vested status. So do not click the new add new member to TRS button. Just report their wages, and this will notify TRS that the employee is active again once they're reported. So again, this is the edit member screen. So once you report wages for a new employee, you can go in and fix any of this information if you need to. All of the ones with an asterisk are required information. And so, like I said, the gender and birth date may need to be added late after you've reported them. But if they are a TRS retiree, so it's a working retiree, you will not be able to edit this information because they're a retired member. Next, we'll review some of this other functionality in the wage and contribution system, like the term pay calculator, the employer balance screen, the contact screen, and then the reporting options. And then all those are obviously described in the online manual. So a brief review of termination pay, and there is, keep in mind, you may have all been involved in some of these term pay presentations by our active membership team. The fact sheet and flow chart are on the TRS website. So, and those are good things to review every spring before you get to your retired members. So a retiring employee can choose to include termination pay in the calculation of their monthly retirement benefits to increase their average final compensation. They'll need to turn in Form 129, which is the irrevocable election, if they want to pay those contributions on a tax-deferred basis, or pay those if you want to put those on your TRS report. Then those need to be that Form 129 needs to be sent in before 90 days before the last day of work to make sure that that's allowed, and that's like an IRS regulation. So the term pay calculator, so this example, they have a signed TPF on file, so that means that they chose option one, and you won't be able to have any other option on there except for option one if they have a TPIF or TPIEF on file, and you'll just select the termination date, retirement date, and then the term pay amount. You'll click on those FICA and Medicare calculators, and then hit the calculate button, and it'll tell you what the employee contribution due is, the employer contribution due, and then down below it'll show you what you can actually pay on a tax deferred basis. So this is what the employee can submit on the wage and contribution report. The rest of that $19,712 needs to come out of their out of pocket, so that employee will write a check for that out of pocket, and then obviously the employer can pay this amount on their wage and contribution report. You always should print the term pay calculator using that printer icon at the top of the screen, and submit that with Form 113 to TRS 1 week prior to doing your wage and contribution report. And that'll, if you don't do that and you still have that information with you, you're going to get an error when you try to do your term payment, when you try to do the payment online. It's going to error saying that person does not have a term pay buyback set up or verified, and our folks in our office need to see that information before they can set up that term pay calculator or that term pay buyback online. So employer balance menu will show what report. It shows what report gave you the overage or shortage. In this case, there was an overage or a credit balance of $47.12. And it looks like it came from the April report, and it'll tell you, and then as long as there's a note out there, it'll tell you why that was, but it's not necessarily always going to be a note. And that's only if the employer put the note in there or TRS put the note in there. The employer contact menu, this is where you will change your contact information as the employer. And we highly encourage, especially if you're a new clerk, to go in there and change your, all your information, your phone numbers and email addresses in the system anytime that information changes. For the reporting menu option, there are about five reporting options that allow you to create some PDF reports or summaries. The employer report summary is just kind of a printer-friendly version, and same with the employer report detail. Those are printer-friendly versions of the report summary screen and the employee detail screen. The annual contribution summary will show the wages and contributions that your district has reported to TRS for a given school year, and it may be, useful to the auditors. This one I've got several. I've had several schools ask me, well, how do I know when somebody, how many of my employees are about to retire or getting close to retirement age? This creditable service report will actually, if you run that, it'll show you how much creditable service all your employees have with TRS. And now some of that's not verified, so we'd have to, obviously we go through a process of verifying all those service, but it will give you a very good idea of who is getting close to retirement. And if you run that screen, and then if you have working retirees and they're wondering how close they are to their allowable earnings for the year, the working retiree report will show that. So these are just some friendly reminders. Hourly versus full-time employees. Use the hourly work status for any employee who is paid hourly. So even if they work the equivalent of full-time hours, if they aren't actually a full-time contract, if they don't have a contract for a full-time employment, then you should be using the hourly work status and just putting in their hours. And then part-time, same thing. The part-time people should only be used, that part-time work status, if they actually have a part-time contract for 0.5 FTE or whatever. I highly encourage you to see the memo that was sent in February of 2021. If you have questions about reporting wages when earned versus when paid. So again, if you have questions about that, feel free to give me a call and we can look at your particular situation, but it's important that all employers are reporting their members on a when earned basis versus when paid. Hiring a TRS retiree and reporting contributions. So there's many regulations and requirements involved in hiring TRS retirees. So please read the fact sheets like we pointed out at the beginning, and fill out those Form 146. Make sure that those are filled out by the member and get those to TRS. If a retiree has been returned to active member status, you must report them as an active member, not a working retiree. So there are some cases where they actually go back to active membership status and they're no longer a working retiree. And in that case, they're usually not receiving a benefit, or they wouldn't be receiving a benefit anymore. Some deadlines: wage and contribution reports must be submitted by the 15th. Please remit your payments by ACH instead of check. It's safer, easier, and more efficient. The Form 140 is very quick and easy to fill out. and get that to us, and we can set you up on ACH payments. I would say 80 to 85% of TRS employers are signed up and submit by ACH at this point. June reports are due by July 15th. That's very important. I think we've talked about that already. You got a memo about it probably in your inbox of your email. Insurance deduction system updates must be submitted to TRS on or before the 16th of the month prior to the month affected. So if you have questions about that, again, Sherry or Chris Fish in our office can help you. And then, of course, just make use of the TRS website. Again, there's all sorts of information. The memos that we send out, all those are archived on there. Any forms or fact sheets. There's rates that show you when the rate changes. If you have questions on any of that, retirement prep information, lots of presentations. So now, if anybody has any questions, obviously just keep in mind I'm always available. If you have questions on the wage and contribution reporting system or Christian Ward, he took over for Joyce Love last year. So, and then here's our main numbers and stuff. But does anybody have any questions?
Nolan, we had one, maybe two. One question regards if we have a foreign teacher. I know a lot of districts are they're hiring teachers from the Philippines. Are there any special considerations for them, or are they treated like a normal employee?
They're treated just like a normal employee. However, there are situations where they may not have a tax ID number currently, or a social security number if they're getting one of those. So you have to wait until you have that. I mean, I've only run into it a few times, but I mean, I would assume even to hire them that they would have to have that tax ID number, but apparently sometimes they're hired without, where they're like in a waiting process. So, so I guess you just have to wait to report them until you have that tax ID number, because that's what TRS needs in order to set them up, with membership. And so even if you have to wait 3 or 4 months, we can always go back and do an adjustment for those wages and contributions once we have that tax ID.
Okay. One thing I want to say about his July 15th deadline is they are furiously working on a calculation to give to you to put on your trustees report. I think it's GASB 64. There's an actuarial number that you need to report your share of TRS's. What's that called? The unfunded.
So it's GASB 68, and it's 68. The net pension liability that we have to calculate for every employer of TRS, and it's basically like that proportionate share that school has of the net pension liability, and that's a number that's used, for all the Mayfair's reports. Right.
So that they'll generate that number, and we'll let you know. They'll let you know when that number is available, and you'll find it on their website. And then if you need help, call, and we'll tell you how to address that. So it looks like we're right up against lunch. Everybody's heading out.
Okay.
And I thank you very much. That was fantastic.
All right. Thank you for having us, and enjoy your lunch.